flexing on them, Mark?
I'm stretching on them. Stretch on the stretch on them.
How long before Rob Rivera jumps on and says how garbage the video quality is today?
Rob can talk crap when he posts the 21.3 and 21.4 pictures.
He's gonna delete and or poorly edit yours now.
Whatever. Josh, we're live.
All right. Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday, we're back on our normal schedule.
Man, it had me thrown for a loop last week doing all that business for the car, and you know me, I'm routine, Mark, and when my routine gets disrupted, that is quite possibly
Whoa,
the most. That was a good crack open. When my routine gets disrupted, that's the most stressful thing. Are we? Where are you going?
I told you this last week. I told you I have to scoot back because the mics will pick each other up.
Am I too close?
No, I was. Look at all this room. 6 feet apart, Josh. So what do you think of that? It's been over a year since we closed the physical location. Do you think anything? I mean, have you even thought about that?
Yeah, I do think about it. I probably think about it a lot more than I would if I didn't mentor other gym owners.
Yeah.
Because we're in a very blessed position that our physical location was closed for a couple of months, and I've got gyms that I work with in Canada, for instance, that have been closed for 10 months.
They're still closed?
Yeah. British Columbia just went back into a 3-week lockdown for all businesses.
Wow.
Because they had like 2 cases. And that's an exaggeration. I don't know how many, but they are uber conservative up there in terms of, if there's 1 case, burn everything down. We're starting this society over. It's been we joke all the time. I do poke fun at myself that I stay in the bubble and things like that, but it has been a perspective widening experience talking with these owners from across the world and seeing how different cultures and societies and governments and groups of people are reacting and dealing with, such vastly different circumstances. So yeah, I do think about it quite a bit. I'm insanely grateful. I never thought that I would say, you know me, I would much rather live in like Asheville. I'm just way past the Florida heat, but I've never been more grateful to live where we live right now, and just have you guys so close, the gym so close, the church so close, and so there's all these things that I probably took for granted in terms of like proximity, and you really start to realize what's important to you and what's valuable and things like that. So I don't know where I was going with this, because you just kind of asked, do you think about it? And the answer is yes, I certainly do think about it.
That's the exact answer I was looking for. Just a glimpse into the owner's mind about that, if you think about it.
It really provided just a immense level of clarity at a speed with which I was not prepared to absorb when the time came, in terms of values for myself, values for the business, vision for the business, all that kind of stuff. In the blink of an eye, it was, just getting slapped in the face with one thing after another that I am, again, incredibly grateful for. And it's been the catalyst for so many great changes. And I know there are plenty of people who have dealt with tragedy, heartbreak, all that kind of stuff. I think everybody has to a certain degree, but you know me, I'm a perpetually positive, optimistic person, and so I try to always find, the silver lining and the opportunities that lie within. So, it's cool. I'm still processing all that stuff, but overall, yes, it's been been a good 365 or however many days now since all that stuff happened. A little more than a year. How about you?
I think about it when I get out of the car. Now, like, getting out of the car this morning, I was like, I was like, a year ago, I wasn't showing up here. I was barely even driving my car anywhere, right? And I think about it when I get out of the car because it's like officially spring. Like, it's wet outside, it's muggy, it's humid. Like, I remember exactly this time a year ago doing workouts outside or in my garage, and exactly what this felt like. And it's just weird that it's like, okay, now I'm like, that's what I think about when it comes to this weather, is like doing the workouts outside a year ago. And so it's just like surreal to say, one, it was a year ago, two, like you said, we're in a very fortunate position that we're in now in the state of Florida, that, of course, in the gym following certain guidelines, but outside of those guidelines, like, everything else is relatively the same, you know, which I think we're lucky to have. And not only have that, but still have everybody be healthy as well. That's not saying, you know, everybody's, you know, it's anarchy here, we're doing whatever we want. Like I said, we're following guidelines. Our state's just remarkably more, we'll say, chill or relaxed about it than, like you said, British Columbia, like going in another 3-week long. I don't know what their situation's like there compared to here. You know, you can't draw comparisons without all the data, which I don't have. But I like you said, I feel lucky and fortunate that life isn't really that disrupted for myself anymore. Right. Which is cool. Yeah. Because I'm also routine. You know, I get very settled, and disruption, I'm like, oh, hold on. All right, let me adjust. Give me 3 or 4 months to adjust.
So something, as you were saying, you know, you kind of got out of your car today and recognized, like, a year ago you weren't doing that because we were closed and you were working at home. And I was like, oh yeah, we all were kind of working at home doing our thing. And it just made me think of the irony of being in the gym today and thinking, like, man, could we turn some fans on in here? Like, it's a little, you know, it's a little stuffy. And then I reminded, you know, because of what you said, I mean, if I was still coaching the groups, and, you know, and I can still have fun with people, and I've got this platform to say these things, but, you know, the next time somebody says something about, like, the AC or the fans or whatever, we're like, remember a year ago when you were in the garage and it was 900 degrees? And but I do think about those things because it is a great benefit to, you know, have the comfort of the air conditioning and the fans and all that stuff. So I guess the point of me saying that is anytime, you know, and we've talked about this on the podcast too, that I have a momentary lapse in being aware of my blessings, and I'm thinking about complaining, as I do try to find, you know, the positive, the thing to be grateful for. And so in this instance, it could be, we're here, number one, in the gym physically doing this, and then number two, the air conditioning is on because the bills are being paid. So that's pretty cool. That's good. Yeah, bills need to be paid. All right. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. We only have one upcoming event. I'm sure after this weekend we've got a staff meeting, so we'll probably add another couple. But officially we've got a gymnastics clinic on April 17th with Coach Emily. We're going to work on some toes to bar and pull up progressions. So if those are, you know, on your radar for things that you want to get better at, then I would maybe pencil in that time from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to be there for that. Yeah. You can find more details on the website, on the app, talk to one of the coaches, but yeah. Yeah, Emily's really excited for it. She's been doing stuff to prep for this for the last, like, 8 weeks. Yeah. And so she's stoked. It's going to be a lot of fun. And she knows her stuff when it comes to this, so if getting your first pull-up or working on them, or first toes to bar or working on them is a goal of yours, even if you're somebody that can do 20 or 30 unbroken, it's probably still going to benefit you. Greg Glassman always said, never mind. You're not listening. Who? Yeah. All right. I'll ask you this one first. What did you think of 21.3 and the surprise, not surprise, but 21.4.
How long do we have? You got a hard out at 11:30.
Yeah, I gotta be out here at 11:30. So
21,
settle in, people.
21.3. Best workout of the 4. We'll call it the 4 we got from the Open, or the 3 weeks of the Open. I thought it was. You put it well. You verbalized it really well. It was intelligently programmed enough to where it was challenging and a little complicated,
Right.
but not so much that you can't follow what's going on. Like in 2017, and it's funny because this is one of my favorite open workouts ever, just by design. But in 2017, there was the one where it was like 3 rounds of 6 pull-ups and 6 snatches, and then 3 rounds of 7 pull-ups and 5 snatches at a heavier weight. And it's like you can't keep track of what you had to do next. And I didn't think this one was like that at all. I thought it was very simple in terms of, hey, let's add a little bit of complication to this, but still make it about fitness. I liked the increasing difficulty of gymnastics movements. I really liked the format. It was, hey, do this real intense interval, because that's what it was. It was an interval, and then it was rest a hard amount of time, which is very, very similar to what we've been doing in here. So I thought...
I had some thoughts on that, but referencing what we were talking about earlier before we started recording, but go ahead, keep going.
So I love 21.3. 21.4 was a lot of fun. My initial response was, I think I said to you, I'm like, it's gimmicky. I mean, it was like, okay, here's the lift you guys were all wanting, right? If they didn't have the lift, I think you would have seen people be like, where's the heavy barbell?
Right.
I thought it fit, and I think you and I will talk about this, like I think it fit really well. 21.4, despite it being gimmicky, fit really well into the 4 tests we were given.
Yeah.
Because not only was it just a heavy lift, like they could have done a deadlift, a clean, a hang clean, or a shoulder to overhead, and they did all of it. I think combined with the workout we got was a really good design, because it was like, for some people it was grip. I'd say for most people it wasn't legs. For me personally, it was like hip drive to be able to like do the cleans and like get in a good position. So I thought that was a very interestingly designed workout to follow the one we did. It was extremely predictable. Like as Castro was announcing, did you watch it was at 3 p.m. Were you?
I didn't see it live, actually. I had to watch it later that night. I was on a conference call with the gym owner. He was out in Washington State, and it's 3 guys that own a gym, and we were all like, hey, it's 3 o'clock. Do we just want to call in here and watch the Open? Which we didn't. We were still talking business, but yeah. So I didn't see it until later that afternoon. So
extremely predictable. As he was announcing it, like even announcing the workout, like writing it out on the board, I was the 21.3. I thought, I was like, this isn't just it. I'm like, it's gonna be more, because also looking at the workout, like once he was all done, you're like, that's not enough for the elite people.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be
gotta be another element. Right.
And then when they cut to Rory and he was talking, and I was like, dude, this is very lackluster. Like they're not giving it all. And then you see Castro in the background. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So even from when he was on the chalkboard writing the workout, I was like, pretty predictable. Loved it. It was my favorite week so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, favorite week so far. What did you think of it?
Well, first, I would like to point out that, I don't know if you said it, but I'm going to take some credit that it was barbell work and on the rig work.
Yeah.
And increasing in complexity gymnastic movements. So I was happy to see that. I really did like the workout. Like I told you, and I'm not going to repeat the same thing, but I thought it was really well designed. I liked just the whole nature of that workout, where, I mean, you could argue that they introduced a new movement with the front squat, but we've been doing thrusters in the Open since the very first Open in 2011. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's the same, or it's a new movement, but to me it's the same because we've been doing thrusters. So, I really, really liked it. Obviously, I like it just because I really like doing higher skilled gymnastic movements. I just, like doing those. So I don't like doing thrusters. And one point of note that I made to Mandy, I think it was either that night or the next night, Sunday night, I realized how much I do not like high volume, moderate weight, intense workouts. Because it just makes you feel so miserable. And it's not like in the moment stuff, it's like the next day. Because, and I'm not trying to make this like a selling point for doing less intense work or anything, but I mean from the collective of listening to people and trying to reach the people that it is difficult for them to even think about doing something within fitness for a consistent amount of time. Think about how long you and I have been doing this stuff, and yet we were annihilated for 3 days.
Yeah.
And so think about trying to convince the new person, hey, you should come do this thing. It's awesome. Everyone is going to cheer with you, even if you're the dead last person to finish or do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not pooping on the community or the camaraderie. I think that's all positive. But what happens when that person leaves and can't walk or even touch their thighs for the next 3 days? I think about those much deeper things than what was in it for me.
Right.
And I'm not saying that everybody needs to, but for my position, I think it is very important to be cognizant of that. Anyways, all that having been said, like I've been very open with, is I do love CrossFit as the sport. I have done every single open workout. I genuinely thought that was probably the best open workout of this year. And yeah, it just fit. The 21.4 was there. I liked it because it was just different enough to throw some people that you could even see the elites were kind of caught off guard, that it's not just, hey, a heavy clean and jerk or a deadlift into a hang clean or something like that. So there had to be some thinking. I think it surprised some people, myself included, that it was way more difficult to put up a top load relative to expectations that we've seen in prior opens. You know, when we had a 15.1A and then we had an 18.2A or something like that, where you're doing a heavy effort lift after a Metcon or after a typical CrossFit workout. You usually see weights put up in the high percentages, 90% plus off of a max load. So 15.1A, you would see people 92, 93% of their all-time best. For novices, we saw PRs for clean and jerks. For this, it was way less. So I thought that outcome, I doubt that it was expected by design, but I do think that the outcome proved it to be a even better test than it was probably intended to be from the get-go.
Yeah.
Something I was thinking as you were talking, if you take the shoulder to overhead part out at the end, can you do more in that complex?
No.
Or okay, so you weren't limited by that.
That was the easiest part of the
I could have done like 40 pounds more if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, and normally it was normally when I clean and jerk, it's the split jerk that gets me. Like I can, typical, like, we always used to say a typical CrossFitter can clean a house but can't put it overhead.
Yes.
Right? That's true for me, but on Saturday it was at my max effort lift, the easiest part was the shoulder to overhead. It flew overhead. The hardest was probably the hang clean, but even then, like, I felt so good on the barbell. You said you couldn't.
No. I ended up getting 180 for that complex, and I remember then maybe it was the night before, 2 nights before, thinking, oh yeah, I should easily be able to hit 195, 205, something in there is like an everyday. We call it like the everyday weight, like no matter what level of fatigue. But apparently this level of fatigue and central nervous system, interaction, all that kind of stuff, it just really took it out of me. I could have cleaned and done that complex with far more, but not put it overhead. So now, in the totality of the open, I shared this in the very first week. I still think 21.1 was just such a lackluster workout. I honestly think that you could, I haven't done these numbers, and this is just a pure guess, and I'm sure somebody can point out if I'm wrong on this, but you could probably take out the scores for 21-1, and the standings might not change all that much, if at all. I'm totally guesstimating, but I think if you remove that and just had 21-2, 3, and 4, still a great Open to me. So there's that, but overall, like I said, I reserve judgment, and of course, I'm not surprised because they have proven they've earned enough credibility over the years in design, the totality of the design, that it does work out well and it's well balanced. That I'm not surprised at all that we still saw high skilled gymnastics, we still saw something heavy. We saw something that was just like, I love your description of like a caveman, me pick up weight, me jump over box.
Yeah.
And I think all those elements made it for a really nice, well-balanced test. And I never once felt unprepared for anything that came out.
So that's interesting you say that, because people were asking me after Saturday, how'd you feel using the barbell? Because admittedly, like, we haven't been doing a lot of barbell front squats, we haven't been doing a lot of barbell thrusters, we haven't been lifting a lot of heavy weight. And so they were asking me, how'd you feel doing that? And I can honestly say, and this isn't just because it's not been in the programming, like, I can honestly say I felt awesome on the barbell, which I was not expecting because we haven't been exposed to those movements as much. But like I mentioned last week, haven't dumbbell snatched in 3.5 months. Haven't done.
You haven't.
I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys have. Yeah, sorry, I haven't dumbbell snatched in 3.5 months.
If you've been consistently coming in. Okay.
But
cool.
I have tendonitis, so I haven't been able to do it. Yeah, sorry. So if you've been consistently coming in, you've been getting dumbbell snatch, you've been getting pull-ups, you've been getting some sort of upper body pulling, like variation. I haven't seen that, but I have been hinging, right? Yeah. So it wasn't like the dumbbell snatch was crushing. I think not doing the upper body pulling did hurt me, because I, in no way, shape, or form have I been exposed to that movement pattern, but I've been exposed to cleans, or squats, I mean. So like the cleans or the front squats felt fine. I've been exposed to upper body vertical pushing.
Right.
So all of those movement patterns felt great.
Right.
But what felt weird was like chest to bar. What felt weird was muscle up, because I haven't been doing it.
Yeah.
But
again, like, if you were a person that hadn't been doing it, before anyways, I wouldn't just say, because you're doing the Open, you should be doing those things.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is it wasn't the movement, it was the pattern.
Exactly.
For you, because you were rehabbing, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that and we've talked about this before, that, remove from your head, and I know this is a stretch for folks that just come in and say, I'm just here to get a great workout. Remove from your head the specific movement and take a look at the patterns. And we've done all the patterns. Matter of fact, we did toes to bar the Thursday before we did them on Saturday for the Open.
Yeah. We
had done a ton of upper body pulling, call it pull-up progressions if you want. We've done a ton of that. So all that stuff, and we've said this for years and years and years, if you just show up consistently, the patterns that we do, squat, hinge, push, pull, and core, or carry, whatever you want to call it, we practice all these patterns that are what you are going to see in the Open.
Yeah.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is, like, if you can do the patterns with good position in the front squat or the thruster, or if you can upper body pull with good positioning in that pattern, you're going to turn out okay. And then finally, we'll call it the 3 Ps, because we've got pattern, position, pacing. If you know how to pace, then you can get through each of those rounds and express what you are capable of expressing when you get to whatever the potential limiter is going to be for you.
Right.
So that's why I say specifically that I felt great. That there was never anything, a wall walk. I don't even remember the last time that I have done a wall walk. maybe to show off with the kids at home, because Quinn and Jesse actually, will do those.
Yeah.
But certainly have never done them in a workout sense.
Right.
But it was a pattern. It was loading the shoulder.
It's funny because those showed up right at the end of a block where we were progressing through tempo dumbbell push press, and I told you,
yes.
I was like, I feel like if we would have been worse off doing just wall walks in workouts and stuff rather than building shoulder strength and stability with the push press. And again, I don't say that because I feel like I have to. Like, I really believe that was much better training for the wall walks than doing wall walks would have been. Now, if we were training that specific standard, it probably would have fared better. Like, people, because you figure out the standard, you figure out the quirks, but
but that's no a sport, and that's different.
Exactly,
right?
And there's no way for us to know that until it's announced Thursday night. There's no way for us to be like, if wall walks ever show up in the open, and this is the standard, right? So, like, the best training we could have had for that workout was, hey, fatigue your shoulders, and do some jump rope, which I'm pretty sure on the same day we did the push press, we did double unders in the Metcon, right? So you're fatiguing your shoulders. So I don't think we could have been more prepared for that workout specifically. You were going to say something.
No, that was it. I felt really good. I think overall, as I said at the very beginning when we were reviewing or predicting the open workouts, that I think overall the test, as always, came out very well balanced.
Yeah.
And this is, like, I didn't do all that great, on, let's say the first workout or even the last workout in terms of, like, maybe expectation I had for myself, but that's not a reflection of the test or anything. But overall, I thought it was great, and I felt really, really good.
So one final note I kind of had on that was, I've been personally thinking, now that the Open has concluded, scores are in, scores are validated, all that stuff, is what could I personally have done better to improve during the Open? And a lot of people go, oh, where could I have made up time in certain workouts? Where could I have paced better? And that's definitely a component of it. But I don't think it had anything to do with, like, the training we were doing. Like I said, like, if we did more front squats and thrusters with a barbell, would that have felt better? Who knows? Maybe. I've been doing a lot of stuff with the dumbbells. So, like, I'm forced into an upright position, right? So I have to breathe a little bit more, meaning the front squats, I think that's why they felt better, the thrusters. But where my head keeps returning to is, like, I think what I personally could have done better in my life to improve at the Open had nothing to do with movement, had nothing to do with nutrition, had nothing to do with stress. I think improving my sleep gets me that much better during the Open. And I think I say that because it's important for people to hear that, like, it's not always just the training. It's not always, hey, like, we do too much of this movement, like, we have to make sure it's diverse. It's not always that kind of stuff, right? Sometimes you do better. And this is speaking for those that have done the Open and, like, you're thinking about how you could have done better. Like, don't just look to the exercise piece. Like, oh, I got to train more, or oh, I got to clean up my nutrition. Like, maybe it's just a matter of sleeping better. Like, I know if I got more sleep, I probably would have beat you in more than one workout.
Right.
Right. So.
What about, I mean, Stephanie said it here, and this is what I was thinking, what about just not being injured?
That's it too. And that could be a result of inadequate sleep quantities, right? Because body's not recovering. It is probably a result of how I was training 6, 7, 8 months ago with that sleep quantity.
Right.
If you sleep 10 to 12 hours a night, like, get with me and we could talk about training volume. But the amount I was sleeping did not complement my training volume. And I think that's where I started falling apart a little bit, literally.
Something that you said really stuck out to me about, you started thinking, well, would it have helped if I figured out, a better pacing strategy, which is a fancy way of saying, where should I not be resting as much, things like that, and, how to set up my equipment. I don't mean to be rude or anything. The only way I know to be with regards to this is just very direct. those are the questions that the best of the best of the best of the best should be asking themselves. The people who just are doing the open because they have to, not because they're concerned about it. Like I've talked about before, that if you're worried about the open, then you're not going to the games, you're not an athlete, right? Because those aren't the ones that are worried about it. So, and I think about this a lot of times with, Gen Pop people that have a goal, whether it's, getting a better score or expressing potential, or a body composition thing is, it's like, what are because this is what the market shows you, like what's the last supplement, that I need to be taking? And what is this unique strategy that I should be going after instead of, what do your general meals look like? Are you eating vegetables? Do you get some sunshine? Are you going to bed and waking up at normal, consistent times? Like, do you drink water? Do you move every day?
Yeah.
No. It's this supplement. It's this pacing strategy. It's this pie in the sky. Yeah, but you haven't even built the foundation. Nah, I don't got time for that.
Right.
Like, well, and that's why, I asked, and I know Stephanie pointed it out too, is like, well, like, you haven't been doing pulling stuff until you had to in the open, but like, you haven't been doing it because you were working through an injury, right? So it's like, let's get that out of the way,
right?
And something else that I would love to share is if you are out there and you're thinking like, man, I don't think that I did as good as I could, or I don't think that I was prepared, or I don't feel like we've been doing enough of this, do what a handful of people have already done. Reach out to a coach and say, hey, I'd love to sit down and talk. That's the best thing that you can do. And then guess what? We have a conversation, and like so many folks have done, we get you set up on an individual design that is relevant to you, not to everybody else. Done.
Boom. I think we're going to get into that with what we also have planned, because I know I'm reading through these notes and I have some questions for you. So
yeah.
Overall, out of 10, how would you rate your enjoyment during the open? Just to close this out.
Relative to other opens? Or just enjoyment of the open? Enjoyment of the open this year. I just love, again, CrossFit as the sport. Mm-hmm. I think you and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like golf or baseball. We grew up in a baseball family. When you're a baseball player, you don't like playing right field when you get older, because that's typically where they put the guy that ain't so good, right? So it's like you never want to see that, like, coach put me in right field.
That's right.
Yeah. I had my fair share of innings in right field too, but so that's a piece that you don't enjoy about this small little entity, and there are pieces that are like, I could do without this, without that, but overall I love the sport of baseball. It is just beautiful to me, and CrossFit as the sport has the same appeal. I do like the sporting aspect. I'm being very deliberate with the sporting aspect, because that's all that I think that it truly is and should be.
Yeah.
But so enjoyment was just as enjoyable as every other open I've done, because like I said before, and this is my personal fitness journey, is I do it for me. I don't do it for anybody else.
Yeah.
And now I'm very aware of my biases and my perspective and my longevity in health and fitness as a profession and as just personal fulfillment, that it's been 2.5 decades worth of just doing this fitness thing. So at a much different point to be able to say that and say it comfortably and honestly. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
What about you?
I love the open. I'm not going to repeat what you just said, other than I also like the sporting aspect. I like keeping up with it. I like following it. I like trash talking those that are better than me. So I like seeing the posts online and then poking fun at them and then getting crushed by workouts. So I love all of that. I thought it was a ton of fun. I don't know, out of 10. Now I feel stupid for asking that question because I don't know how to answer it. I don't know, probably, 9 or 10. It was up there. I enjoyed it just as much as any other open.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. I have a question for the people that are watching right now. Is the picture jumpy on your end because it looks like we're in a stop motion film, or does it come through clear on your end? What about you, Mark? Is it clear on your end or is it jumpy? Maybe if I refresh this page.
It's jumpy, but I don't keep it on the same. Are you switching between tabs?
No.
You're keeping it on that screen?
No, I've got two separate windows open. Tina, yes as in yes it's jumpy, or yes it's clear? Can you guys provide some clarity? Hold on, I'm going to wait to see. It's jumpy. Okay. Well, maybe Rob can edit that in post-production. Sorry about that. What about the audio? Is the audio clear? Jumpy. Okay. How about audio? Is audio jumpy or audio clear?
Audio.
Let's see what they said.
Now it's clear on my end.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe just me, my aura getting closer to the camera.
Audio's fine, but
Okay.
as soon as you enter the frame again, it went jumpy.
Did it really?
And now it's better.
Okay. All right. Oh well. Let's just keep rolling. You guys can just close your eyes and imagine that the picture is perfect.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's what Rob Rivera has to do. Otherwise, he's probably throwing up on himself. Okay.
So, I'll ask you this next one.
Cool. I got a lot to say.
Get into this listener question. We got 22 minutes. So, what, in your position, with your experience,
Yep.
what is the biggest challenge that you've seen and you see people face when it comes to their health and wellness journey?
Yes.
Okay.
First, I do have to chuckle at Tina's comment. There's a nut loose behind my computer. I think she's insulting you, Mark. So.
Behind your computer.
So behind my computer.
Just,
Or is she talking about me?
I don't know.
Because I'm behind your computer.
Yeah. Because you're behind your computer. Is this in front of or behind?
No, I'm in front of my computer. This is behind it.
Well, how come they say people go crazy behind the keyboard?
Oh, that's true.
See?
Well, all right. Anyways, so the question, repeat it one more time.
What is the biggest challenge you see and you've seen people face in their health and wellness journey, experience?
So I thought a lot about this, and I want to make it as clear. I would like to make it as clear as possible. And I think that this is kind of like a catch-all, and this is not meant to be like a politician, and I'm not trying to make it super reductionist. In fact, I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to show how related all of our problems seemingly are. Mm-hmm. Not seemingly are, they are. So for me, what I've found in my experience, 2 decades worth of coaching, working with people in the health and fitness industry, is staying focused for long enough with consistent effort towards what they want to achieve. And we can call it goals. I know some people are uncomfortable with goals, but whatever you want to get to. And when I say this and I look at what I wrote down, because I wanted to make sure that I said this clearly, you recognize that we're talking about problems specific to health and fitness, but that can really be just life in general. Why isn't my business growing? Why isn't my relationship with my significant other improving? Why am I not getting X, Y, Z? Well, because maybe you haven't made it super clear what you want. And so that's the focus part, is you need to have a super clear vision of what you want. Okay, so that's the first thing. And if you skip over that without having clarity of vision or goal or whatever you want to call it, then number one, most important, you'll never know if you get there or not. So if I say I want to lose weight, 1 pound, 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Because you could lose some weight, and I said, hey, great, we met your goal. What do you mean? Well, you said you wanted to lose some weight, and you lost 2 pounds. But that, no, I want to lose more. So then we didn't have clarity. So you need to understand what that is. So I guess maybe the sub A would be, knowing precisely what I'm working towards. But staying focused on that for long enough, with consistent effort. It's not enough to just have, because we're really talking about 3 different things: focus, effort, and time, consistency, right? So focus, effort, and time. It's not enough to just have 2 of those. So you can't have focus, so clarity of what it is that I want, and then work really, really hard and intensely for a month. And then get mad when I don't get to what it is I thought that I was going to be able to get to. Mm-hmm. And we see this a lot in the health and fitness industry. We see this a lot, and we've talked about it like at the beginning of the year. The turn of every new year, the number 1 resolution is I want to get in better shape. And people go hard out of the gates. They're going to the gym, 4 or 5 days a week. And after, I think it's like 22, 23 days, they fall off, and 80% of them never go back. Or maybe they go 30 days, and then February 1st, they never come back. So they did 30 straight days. That's super intense. Or if you had just gone 3 days a week and you carry that consistently for the year, we've got focus, we've got effort. I've got to actually put in work, and then I've done it consistently for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Depending upon what your goals are, it may be 10 years' time. But again, you can't just have 2 of those things. You have to have all 3. So if I have an intense focus, but I'm not actually putting in work, but I'm super patient and I'm just sitting around waiting, okay, well, you're not actually doing the work. You're clear on your goal and you're waiting the appropriate time, but if you're not actually putting in the work that's necessary, you're never going to get there. And so, and I'll make this really tangible for people that are listening, and they're like, well, what about from a movement perspective? I want to get X movement. We'll use the gymnastics clinic as an example, mm-hmm. because people, and coming off of if you did 21.3 and you care about toes to bar, pull-ups, or bar muscle-ups, I've got a very clear goal that I want to hit. Okay, so you sit down with your coach, or you go to the clinic, and you guys come up with a plan, and you set an expectation, and you have all these little checkpoints that you need to hit, and you set the plan, and you say, hey, this is going to take at least a year to get to this point, which might not even be your first set of 6 toes to bar, or your first set of 3 bar muscle-ups, whatever it is. And you get impatient, or you come in and you see something else that somebody's doing, and you get distracted, and you're like, no, now this is my goal. Oh no, I want to do this thing. And we call it, shiny object syndrome, is you're always getting caught up by what you're seeing somebody else do, instead of being focused, staying focused on what it is that you want.
Right. What if you're somebody, and again, goals can scare some people when we ask, what are your goals? And I've ran into it before where somebody said to me, I don't really know what my goals are. Like, I don't really know what they are, but they said, for example, someone has said to me before, I don't really know what my goals are. I've never really thought about them, but I like competition. Like, I like being able to work out next to somebody and beat them. Like, what do you say to that? Right? So obviously their goals are performance oriented, you could say. You just ask better questions.
Yeah, you have to allow the time for the conversation to take hold and develop, and you can't do that in a 5-minute interaction in between sets of squatting or deadlifting, or in the 1-minute rest in today's interval workout. Mm-hmm. That's got to be just like we're having here, sit down. There also has to be recognition that you might chat for an hour and walk away without answers. And you have to be okay with that. Because ultimately, your role, my role as the coach is as we get better and more experienced, you can ask better questions. But at the end of the day, the client, the member, is the one who has got to come to terms with exactly what they want. Now, if I'm sitting with that person, they say, I really like competition and I want to be next to somebody and I want to beat them. Okay, well, I can put somebody that is terribly out of shape next to you and you're going to crush them every single time. Is that, well, no, you know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean. That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you mean that you want somebody who is just slightly above you in capability, and because you're going to push yourself to beat them? Whether it's yes or no, there's no judgment. But again, you need to create space for these conversations to happen. And it's why we're so adamant on sitting down and opening up this conversation and having it with, coach to client, coach to member,
It's almost paradoxical, somebody saying that they like competition, right? Because if you put someone extremely out of shape next to them relative to them and they beat them, well, no, that's not good enough. But I don't want somebody better next to me.
Yeah.
They don't want it to be a given win, a handout.
Yeah.
But they don't want it to be a given loss. So it's just kind of the cycle that you're in of, are you chasing the competition? Are you chasing the feeling of almost being there and winning, or almost being there and losing? Or are you chasing winning? Are you chasing never winning, but trying your hardest to do it? So again, those are maybe some of the questions you'd ask.
Yeah.
Is like, so what do you like about the competition? Like, okay,
well, chasing the feeling that you get, and I know you can't feel it when it happens, like literally the hormones coming into your body, into your bloodstream, but that is a distinct possibility that you're chasing that dopamine rush.
Yeah.
And there's a whole can of worms to open there.
Yeah.
Again, no judgment, but there has to be a lot of exploration into what that motivation is. And you and I have talked about this at length. We've written about it, but there's a difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. The competition aspect and what you're saying there is an extrinsic motivator, because, and this was a big revelatory experience that I had last year, is when the gym closed down and you're working out in your garage, and for I think almost everybody, you're working out alone. So you mean to tell me that if you don't have somebody next to you, that you're not going to still do something that's going to improve your health and wellness? That's a problem for me, philosophically.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm in this for. Like, I need to know that if this place closes today, you can still go and fish for yourself. That's super deeply important for me. And again, it's no judgment, but I need to know that I'm setting you up enough for success that you can do this thing on your own. That you don't have to. There's a difference between wants and needs, and everybody knows that. We don't need a new car, we want a new car. And I'm saying this to myself, right? Same thing. You don't need somebody next to you, you want somebody next to you. And I'm okay with that. And there needs to be that understanding, in the relationship between coach and client.
Yeah.
But again, it's not a fleeting passing thing. You have to allow space for that conversation to develop.
So staying focused for long enough with consistent effort, you think, is the biggest challenge that these people face?
Yeah, definitely.
You just spoke a lot on autonomy, and without really saying the word.
I honestly didn't think about that.
We kind of went back to it as, with that, could that be second biggest challenge that people face? Some sort of lack of autonomy when it comes to this kind of stuff? It's just, we talked about staying focused for long enough with consistent effort. I have another question surrounding that, but then, as I mentioned, a lot of what we just said was surrounding, okay, like, you should be able to fish for yourself if the gym ever closed, or if we had another lockdown and we went back to remote coaching. Where does that kind of fit in on your, we'll just say, list of biggest challenges? So your top one was staying focused for long enough with consistent effort. Is autonomy tied for that? Does it surpass that after we talk about it? Is it second? I mean...
Yeah. I don't think for the individuals that are probably listening to this that it falls into their top 10. And the reason that I say that is I think that concept, because you and I have kind of talked about this for quite a while now, but it's still fairly new language for us to kind of talk about. Now, of course, we can wrap our heads around it because we kind of live and breathe it every day, but it's such a far off thought that I truly don't believe that most people really give it a whole lot of thought. It's like, this is why I'm doing this fitness thing, and by far the biggest challenge that they face is just staying focused for long enough with consistent effort. And if you do that, though, the ironic thing is it provides an obscene amount of enjoyment in the process. And I was reading one of Stephanie's comments, the process associated with whatever she used competition, because we were talking about that. But when you fall in love with the process, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
You're going to end up getting there, right? So staying focused, putting in the effort, being patient, all those things, they allow for enjoyment, because we know then deep down within ourselves that we are taking the necessary steps to get to wherever we want to go. And I think if people do enough, kind of quiet soul searching, the times when you're most disappointed with yourself are the times when you're not doing the work that needs to be done for long enough while staying focused.
Yeah.
Like when you're late at night, and I'm super guilty of this, late at night, I'm bored and I'm going to go open up the cabinet. Oh, look at the snacks that are in the cabinet. Like those are the times when I'm like, man, I'm not making the best decision. And I'm not like, don't take this as me shaming myself or that you should shame yourself. I'm just saying, take some time to think about when you have potentially been disappointed in decisions that you've made. It's probably for that reason. So if, said the other way, if you do the things necessary for long enough with focus, you are going to be enjoying that process.
It reminds me of like physique competitors. So that maybe the 6 to 8 to 12 to 16, whatever it might be, that X amount of weeks leading up to a physique competition, right? They're in a very, to me, unappealing state of nutrition, exercise, energy levels, all of that. Like to me, that doesn't, like I wouldn't enjoy that type of focus, effort for that amount of time, because it's not something that I'm at this point in my life willing to, and I mean like extreme cuts, like extreme calorie deficits, using a lot of energy, risking injury in the pursuit of looking a certain way for a competition, right? So it kind of goes back to that competition aspect, and how I've heard of just about everybody I know that's done a physique competition saying prep and the cut is awful. It's terrible. I hated it. I hated every second of it. It's like, man, why are you doing it?
Right.
Like how, like, but then it makes you wonder, like, how big is that dopamine rush, or how big is that payoff when you look great on the competition stage? Like you're going through 6 to 8 weeks of delayed gratification for that 1 hour you're on stage. Like to me, again, I wouldn't. I could see the appeal if that's why people did it. And so it makes me wonder, like, that process, like, it's not enjoyable. It doesn't look enjoyable. It doesn't sound enjoyable.
Right.
And that's coming from someone who's talked to many people. I know a couple of people from high school, men and women, that have done them. And it's like, man, if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? That's like if you were like, man, I love the open. Like you just said, I love the open. And I'm guessing during the Open every year, you want to do as best as you can, right?
Yeah.
The best that you can, given what you've got.
Right.
But you used to train to be competitive, right?
Yeah.
And it took time away from other things that you talked about, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't enjoyable for you.
Correct.
And that's the conversation, we're kind of just rephrasing what we always say every week in a different way is like, are you, like, if you're not enjoying it, like that time of focus and effort, or that type of focus and effort for that amount of time, like,
what's the point?
What's the point?
Right.
And what if, what if you get to the point where you're not enjoying what you're doing anymore? What should you do?
Change it.
What is it? Is that on your own? Is it talking to a coach? Is it both? Like,
well, I think I can speak for everybody that's listening to this right now, is you should certainly talk to a coach. And I'm glad that you asked that, because it's one thing to say, hey, this is the biggest challenge that people face is focus, effort and time, all those kinds of things. It's like, okay, if we identify that as the biggest challenge, what's the action that somebody should take is yes, sitting down and having a conversation with your coach to figure out what direction do I really want to go.
Yeah.
And it's one thing for us to speak about generalizations in a platform like this, but you can't do that in the one-on-one setting, which is why it's so powerful, because it's all about the person sitting in front of you, as it should be. Because the person sitting in front of you is a unique individual who is different than maybe the next person that you have coming in after them, right? So different from life experience, different from biases, different from things that they like versus dislike. I heard somebody say, I think it was Melissa Z yesterday, said like, oh man, I miss wall balls. I just love doing those. I'm like, I don't feel the same way. So, but again, I think these are the things that we as coaches probably don't talk about enough to know what goes into being just a world-class coach. I take note of that, and you would take note of that. Like, oh man, this is something that she likes. Okay, like I'm going to jot that down. So again, and I'm just using her as an example. If I was working with her, that would be something that when appropriate for that pattern and for progression and stuff, those would be in there. Not to say that if she didn't like it, it wouldn't be in there. But again, there's a fine balance between giving the client what they want versus what I know they need, to the point where you coach them for long enough that they end up wanting what they need.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question, but
no,
the answer is just sit down and chat with your coach. Again, like we had, a handful of people already, which is, I love, right? I mean, the Open was over 3 days ago, and we've already had people like, hey, excuse me, hand up. I had this realization that I need to get better, and this is what I want to work on. Great. Let's do it.
That's okay.
Yeah. And I think Bart and I were actually having this conversation. I think it was after 21.2. He was talking about like this, that, and the other. I said, hey man, let me stop you right there. If you're serious about wanting to do great in the Open, forget about this one, and your training for 2022 starts now.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah. Like we broke Jay's toes to bar down and started from a progression of doing like 4 at a time in September of last year. And
he was able to do the 30 in like two sets.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it starts, if that's you, I know we're right up against the time. But yeah, to your point, so that's the challenge. How do you address it? You sit down and have a conversation.
What if it's, and I know we're close on time, that could be analogous with anything in life. So what if it was at your job? What if it was in your career? Like not even your job, but your career. What if it was with a spouse?
Your finances.
Yeah, your finances. Like what if you're not enjoying where you're at?
You sit, in any of those instances, if you're having legal issues, You don't just tweet out, hey, I need some advice here. Let me get the 140 character version.
Yeah.
No, you sit down, you have a conversation because you're taking it seriously. Sit down with a professional.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what they're there for.
Yes, that's what we are here for. Awesome. Well, cool. I liked all the interaction today. It was good.
Yeah, it was
hopefully the video when we download it and publish it is not jumpy, but if it is, then we'll just say we're trying something new called stop motion. We're taking it back to the old school. All right. That's it for me. That's it for us.
That's it for us. Guys, thank you for tuning in live. If you tuned in live today and joining in on the fun with your comments and letting us know if the video and audio was working. If you are listening to this on SoundCloud or Buzz